At first I laughed, thinking he was joking, maybe just frustrated after a long day. But the look in his eyes told me he wasn't. His tone was cold, deliberate, and final. As though he had already made some irreversible decision without me, the words stung more than I expected. My brother, Armand, and I had never been best friends, but we had grown up side by side, sharing the same roof, meals, and memories. We fought like siblings do over car keys, chores, who was Dad's favorite, but I had always believed there was still some kind of unspoken loyalty between us. That night, standing in the dim light of the hallway, it felt like that loyalty had snapped. "Excuse me?" I asked, trying to mask my confusion with a laugh. "What's that supposed to mean?" He didn't blink. "You heard me. You need to leave. This isn't your place anymore." The chill in his voice made the air heavier, and my chest tightened with unease. I looked at him, searching for some hint of the brother I once trusted, but all I saw was a stranger. I wanted to argue, but my mind kept circling around his choice of words, "This isn't your place anymore." Why would he say that? Our home belonged to Dad, not him. Nothing about it made sense. For the rest of the night I couldn't shake it. I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying his tone, the hard set of his jaw, the way he didn't even flinch when I demanded an explanation. Every memory we shared, from childhood pranks to late-night talks, felt tainted, overwritten by this sudden cruelty. The next morning I tried to brush it off, telling myself he must have been angry, maybe stressed. But the way he avoided me told a different story. He wouldn't meet my eyes at breakfast. He barely spoke to Dad, only offering clipped answers and nods. There was a new sharpness to him, something calculating that I had never noticed before, and then, as if fate itself was teasing me, Dad announced over coffee that his birthday celebration would be in a week. "We'll invite everyone," Dad said warmly, smiling at the thought of the whole family together again. "It'll be good for us." The timing felt strange, almost too perfect. Armand's command to leave, followed by Dad's plans for a family gathering. Something was brewing beneath the surface, and I was standing too close to it. I began to watch him more closely. He was careful, but not careful enough. Late at night I'd hear him speaking on the phone in hushed tones, his voice low but urgent. During the day I'd catch him rifling through drawers in Dad's study, quickly slamming them shut when he realized I was nearby. When I asked what he was doing, he brushed me off with a smirk, every little action piled onto the unease already gnawing at me. His words, "Pack your bags," kept echoing in my mind like a warning. He didn't just want me gone. He was preparing for it, as if my place in this house, in this family, had already been erased. For the first time, I wondered if my brother had always been like this, and I had simply been too blind to see it, and yet I couldn't leave. Not without answers, not without finding out why my own brother wanted me out of Dad's house so badly. That night, as I lay awake once more, I promised myself one thing: whatever Armand was planning, I would uncover it. Even if it meant turning Dad's birthday into something none of us would ever forget. In the days leading up to Dad's birthday, the house felt like it was shrinking. Every corner hummed with tension I couldn't quite name, like the walls themselves were listening. My brother's command still lingered over me, heavy as storm clouds, and though I tried to act normal, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was fundamentally broken. Our family had never been perfect. Dad, after Mom passed away, did his best to keep us grounded, but grief has a way of carving cracks into even the strongest foundations. Armand and I grew up learning to tiptoe around Dad's exhaustion, his quiet sadness, his tendency to throw himself into work rather than conversation. We weren't neglected, but we weren't exactly nurtured either. Still, despite all that, I believed we were bound together, Armand and me. Which is why Armand's sudden hostility felt so much like betrayal. He wasn't just pushing me away. He was threatening to unravel what little stability we had left. "Remember, next week be on your best behavior," Dad reminded us one evening, as if he sensed the simmering tension. "It's my birthday, and I want no drama. Just family, laughter, and peace." He smiled, but the worry in his eyes betrayed him. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Of course, Dad." Armand, on the other hand, smirked like he knew something the rest of us didn't. "Don't worry. It'll be a birthday to remember." Those words set off another alarm bell in my chest. The way he said it, calm, deliberate, almost smug, felt less like a promise and more like a threat. From then on, I started paying closer attention. Arman was hiding something, I was sure of it. His late-night phone calls grew longer, his tone more insistent. Once, I caught him whispering in the living room, only to hang up the second I walked in. "What's going on?" I asked. "None of your business," he replied without even looking at me. His jaw was tight, his fingers drumming restlessly against the armrest. At meals, he acted as though I wasn't there. He lavished attention on Dad, serving him food, pulling out chairs, laughing too loudly at his jokes. It was the kind of affection he hadn't shown in years, and it felt rehearsed. Like he was auditioning for a role. And then there were the papers. One afternoon, I walked past Dad's study and caught sight of Arman hunched over the desk. He scrambled to shut a folder, but not before I caught a glimpse of what looked like legal document signatures, seals, official stamps. My stomach dropped. "What are you doing in Dad's study?" I demanded. He straightened slowly, his expression unreadable. "Just helping Dad sort some things." But the way his eyes glittered told me he was lying. That night I tried to confront him again. "Why did you tell me to pack my bags?" "What are you planning?" He only smirked, that same infuriating smirk that made me want to shake him. "You'll find out soon enough." I couldn't sleep after that. Every word, every look, every whisper seemed to add to the puzzle, but I couldn't yet see the full picture. All I knew was this: Arman wanted me gone. And he was setting the stage for it at Dad's birthday. What hurt most wasn't just the thought of being betrayed by my own brother. It was the thought that Dad, the one person whose love anchored me, might not even believe me when the time came. As the birthday drew closer, the dread grew heavier. The house buzzed with preparations, guests invited, decorations planned, food arranged, but underneath the cheerful chatter, I felt it, a trap tightening. One I wasn't supposed to notice until it was too late, but I noticed, and I was determined to be ready. The morning of Dad's birthday arrived, draped in forced cheer. The house bustled with noise pots clanging in the kitchen, relatives calling to confirm their arrival, the faint smell of roasted meat drifting through the air. On the surface, everything looked like a celebration. But beneath the streamers and balloons, I felt like I was stepping into a battlefield. Dad was radiant that morning, more alive than I'd seen him in months. He moved around with boyish excitement, greeting neighbors, laughing as cousins hugged him. His silver hair caught the sunlight as he stood near the garden, talking about how grateful he was to see the whole family together again. I wish I could share his joy, but my stomach was tied in knots. My eyes weren't on the guests or the decorations, they were on Arman. He played the role of dutiful son perfectly. Smiling, hosting, shaking hands. He hovered near Dad like a shadow, making sure everyone saw how attentive he was. He filled Dad's plate, adjusted his chair, poured his drink, always quick to crack a joke that made the room laugh. To anyone else, it looked like a son honoring his father. But to me, it looked staged, too polished, too rehearsed. At one point, Dad patted Arman's shoulder and said, "I don't know what I'd do without you." The words landed like a knife in my chest. I glanced at Arman, and for a split second he met my gaze. His smirk was small but sharp, as if to say, "See? I've already won." I forced myself to keep smiling, but every nerve in my body screamed to stay alert. I couldn't let my guard down. As the day wore on, the house swelled with chatter and laughter. Aunts and uncles reminisced. Cousins bickered over board games. Kids ran through the garden. Outwardly, it was the kind of gathering Dad loved, a warm reminder of family bonds. But I couldn't ignore the undercurrent. Whenever I tried to approach Dad, Arman was already there, intercepting me, redirecting conversations, drawing attention away. It was as though he was deliberately keeping me in the shadows. Then, in the middle of the festivities, I caught something. I had gone into the kitchen to grab more plates when I heard Arman's voice low, urgent, coming from the pantry. I froze, pressing myself against the wall. "He'll sign it tonight," Arman was saying. "Don't worry. Once it's done, she won't have any claim left. It'll all be mine." My heart thudded in my chest. "He'll sign it tonight, Dad?" What was he talking about? A will? Property papers? The realization hit me like a punch. Armand wasn't just trying to push me out emotionally, he was trying to erase me from Dad's legacy altogether. I wanted to burst in and demand answers, but I forced myself to stay still. If I confronted him without proof, he'd twist it against me, make me look paranoid. I needed to wait. I needed the right moment. When I returned to the party, my face must have betrayed me because Aunt Farah frowned. "Are you okay, dear?" "You look pale." I forced a smile. "Just tired, that's all." But inside, my resolve hardened. If Armand was planning to use Dad's birthday to finalize his betrayal, then I would use the same night to expose him. As evening fell, the guests gathered in the living room, surrounding Dad with gifts and laughter. The cake was brought out, candles lit, voices rose in song. Dad beamed, his eyes glistening with joy. For a moment, I almost forgot the tension, but then I looked at Armand. His expression wasn't just celebratory, it was triumphant. He stood close to Dad almost possessively, as if guarding something precious, and that's when I knew. The moment of truth was approaching. I wasn't sure how yet. But one thing was certain before the night was over. I would find a way to shatter his act and show everyone the truth. After the candles were blown out and the cake was sliced, the party began to relax into that hazy rhythm of clinking glasses, casual conversations, and scattered laughter. But I couldn't relax. Not with Armand keeping so close to Dad, his every gesture calculated, his eyes darting around the room as if checking whether his performance was being admired. I decided then I wasn't just going to watch. I was going to catch him. The first clue came unexpectedly. I was in the hallway, picking up coats that had slipped from the rack, when I overheard two uncles talking in low tones near the dining room. "Strange, isn't it?" "Armand mentioned the old property papers," one of them said. "Said Dad was thinking of transferring things early." "Early?" The other chuckled. "He's not even sick. What's the rush?" Their voices drifted off, but my ears burned. Property papers. Transferring things. My heart hammered in my chest. This was a proof that Armand had been meddling with Dad's affairs. I needed more. Later, I spotted Armand slipping away from the crowd, disappearing down the hall toward Dad's study. I followed quietly, careful not to draw attention. The study door was ajar, and through the gap I saw him hunched over the desk again, rifling through the same folder I'd caught him with days earlier. Only this time I managed to catch a clearer glimpse. Legal documents. Bold black lettering. The words "Last Will and Testament" stamped across the top. I nearly gasped aloud. My suspicion was confirmed. Armand was tampering with Dad's will. I forced myself to breathe quietly, straining to hear. "She won't stand a chance," Armand muttered under his breath, as though reassuring himself. He slipped a pen into his pocket and tucked the papers neatly back into the folder, his movements precise, almost rehearsed. "Tonight it'll all be done." My stomach twisted. He wasn't just plotting to take everything. He was counting on Dad being oblivious, tricked into signing away the future without realizing what it meant for me. Rage boiled under my skin. But I held it back. If I burst in now, he'd only claim I misunderstood, that I was snooping. No, I had to be patient. I had to wait until everyone was watching, so he couldn't wriggle free. As the night wore on, the party shifted into smaller clusters of conversations. Guests lounged in the living room with tea, children sprawled on the floor with toys, and Dad laughed as cousins showed him old photos. But through it all I watched Armand. He was careful. Too careful. Every smile he gave Dad, every compliment, every toast, beneath it I could see the calculation. He was setting up the perfect stage, preparing for that final move when Dad would sign something he didn't fully understand. And then came the second clue. Aunt Farah, bless her sharp tongue, had a way of noticing things others missed. She leaned toward me with a frown. "Why is Armand suddenly so attentive? He hasn't cared this much since he was in college. Now he's hovering like a nursemaid." I forced a thin smile. Maybe he's trying to make up for lost time. But her words gave me validation. Others were noticing the performance too. If I exposed him, they might believe me. That thought gave me strength. By the time dinner was served, I had gathered enough to form the picture. The whispered conversations about property, the will in Dad's study, the overheard muttering about tonight. Armand wasn't simply being dramatic, he was orchestrating an ambush. He wanted Dad to sign away everything, to erase my place in the family without me even realizing it until it was too late, but now I knew. And knowing gave me power. As I sat across from him at the long dinner table, candles flickering between us, I caught his gaze. He smirked again, but this time I didn't look away, because I wasn't afraid anymore. I had the pieces of his puzzle, and soon I'd be the one to put them together in front of everyone. The dinner table gleamed under warm light, dishes laid out like offerings: roast lamb, saffron rice, bowls of steaming curry, fresh naan stacked high. Guests chatted noisily, clinking glasses, complimenting the food. To anyone else, it was a perfect family gathering. But for me, every second felt like a ticking clock, winding down to the moment when Armand would make his move. I watched him closely as we ate. He was confident, too confident. Laughing easily, leaning toward Dad, pouring him another glass of wine. He had perfected the image of the dutiful son, the heir apparent. To everyone else, he looked like the golden child. But I knew better. Halfway through dessert, Armand cleared his throat. His voice was calm, casual, but it cut through the chatter like a blade. "Dad," he said, sliding his chair back, "there's something important we need to take care of tonight. Something for your peace of mind." The room quieted, curiosity prickling through the air. Dad, blissfully unaware of the undercurrents, smiled warmly. "What is it, son?" Armand reached into his jacket and pulled out the folder I had seen in the study. My pulse skyrocketed. He laid it gently on the table like it was a gift. "I had these prepared," he said smoothly, flipping the cover open. "It's just paperwork. Legal documents. It'll make sure your wishes are respected no matter what happens." "You won't have to worry." Several relatives nodded approvingly. "Smart idea," one uncle said. "It's good to be prepared." Dad's brow furrowed slightly. "Papers? For what exactly?" Armand slid the top sheet toward him, placing the pen beside it. "It's your will. It clarifies everything. Who gets what? I thought it would be better to do it now, while everyone's here to witness it." The audacity of it made my blood boil. He was using Dad's birthday in front of family to corner him into signing away everything. The timing was perfect, too perfect. No one would suspect foul play at such a sentimental moment. I couldn't stay silent any longer. "Don't sign it," I said firmly, my voice cutting through the murmurs. All eyes snapped to me. Dad looked surprised. "What do you mean?" I stood, my heart pounding, but my voice steady. "That's not just your will, Dad. It's been tampered with. I saw him in your study. I heard him. He's been planning this all week." Gasps echoed around the table. Armand's face darkened, his mask slipping for the first time. "You're paranoid," he snapped. "You're making things up to cause drama on Dad's birthday." But I shook my head, refusing to back down. "I heard you say it yourself, Armand, once it's done. She won't have any claim left. You weren't preparing this for Dad's peace of mind? You were preparing it to erase me." The room erupted into murmurs. Relatives exchanged shocked glances. Aunt Farah, always outspoken, narrowed her eyes at him. "Is this true, Armand? Did you alter the will?" His composure wavered. "It's none of her business. I'm just making sure Dad's wishes are carried out." But I pressed forward, pulling the final card from my pocket. Earlier that evening, before dinner, I had slipped into the study and taken photos of the documents with my phone. Now I laid it on the table, showing the screen. "Look, this version of the will leaves everything Dad's house. His savings, even the land to Armand alone. My name isn't even mentioned." Gasps turned into outrage. "How could you?" Someone whispered, "That's theft." Another muttered. Dad's face fell, his hands trembling as he looked between us. "Armand." "Tell me this isn't true." For the first time, my brother had no clever smile, no rehearsed words. His silence was louder than any confession. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Dad, he told me to pack my bags. He was planning to push me out of this family completely." Tonight, he thought he could corner you into signing it in front of everyone so no one would question it. But now, everyone knows. The weight of my words settled over the table like a heavy curtain. Dad pushed the papers away, his voice breaking. I can't believe you would do this, Armand. To your own sister. To me, Armand's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. The silence told us everything, and in that moment, the betrayal stood naked in front of the entire family. The room sat in stunned silence. The hum of the party had died, replaced by the heavy weight of betrayal. Armand's eyes darted around the table, searching for an ally, but no one spoke. Even the cousins, who usually found amusement in any drama, sat frozen, their wide eyes fixed on him. Dad pushed his chair back slowly. The scrape of the wood against the floor louder than anything else in that moment. He stood, staring at his eldest son, the one he had trusted so completely. The one he had been praising just hours before. Armand, Dad's voice cracked. Soft, but edged with steel. How long have you been planning this? Armand's jaw tightened, his shoulders stiff. For a heartbeat, I thought he might deny it again. But the look on Dad's face, hurt, raw, almost pleading, seemed to strip away his confidence. He muttered, I was just trying to secure what was rightfully mine. The words struck like a blade. Gasps rippled through the relatives, some shaking their heads, others whispering under their breath. Aunt Farah slammed her hand on the table. Rightfully yours? Everything your father has belongs to both of you. You wanted to rob your own sister. Armand's lips curled in frustration. She's never done anything for this family. I've been here, taking care of Dad, making sure things run smoothly. She doesn't deserve a share. The words burned, but I refused to let them weaken me. My voice rang steady. You don't get to decide what I deserve. And you certainly don't get to manipulate Dad into cutting me out. Dad's hands trembled as he reached for the papers, clutching them tightly before tearing them in half. The ripping sound echoed in the room like thunder. He tossed the pieces onto the table, his voice firm despite the tears brimming in his eyes. No son of mine will betray his family like this, he said. You've disgraced me tonight, Armand, on my birthday, no less. The finality in his tone silenced even the whispers. Armand's face paled, his bravado crumbling. He looked less like the calculating man who had orchestrated this scheme and more like a boy caught stealing cookies. But there was no innocence left to cling to. You told your sister to pack her bags? Dad continued, his voice rising with anger. You tried to erase her from my will without my knowledge? You thought I wouldn't find out? Armand's lips parted, but no words came. Dad turned to me, his expression softening. I'm so sorry you had to carry this alone. You should never have had to fight for your place in this family. My throat tightened, but I managed a shaky nod. For the first time in days, I felt seen, believed. The relatives began murmuring again, this time in support. Aunts patted my shoulders, cousins gave me encouraging looks. Even those who had stayed quiet before now made their disapproval of Armand clear. He stood there, isolated, stripped of the image he had worked so hard to craft. Finally, Dad spoke again, his voice steady. Armand, I don't know if I can forgive you. But I will not let your greed tear this family apart. You need to leave for tonight at least. I need space. We all do. The words were decisive, a reversal of the command Armand had thrown at me days earlier. This time, he was the one told to leave. Armand's jaw worked as though he wanted to argue, but he saw the faces around him stern, disappointed, unyielding, and knew there was no point. Without another word, he turned and walked out, the slam of the front door marking his exit. Silence followed, broken only by Dad's weary sigh. He lowered himself back into his chair, looking older than I had ever seen him. Yet when he turned to me, his eyes were clear. You stood up for yourself and for me, he said. I'll never forget that. Tears pricked my eyes, but this time they weren't from pain. I just couldn't let him take everything, Dad. Not from you, not from us. He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. From now on, no more secrets. We'll face everything together. Around us, the party slowly began to recover. The relatives talked quietly, the children resumed their games, and the tension gradually lifted. It wasn't the birthday Dad had imagined, But it was the night everything came into the light. As I looked at the torn papers on the table, I realized something important. Armand's betrayal had hurt, yes, but it had also freed me. I no longer needed his approval, his brotherly bond, or even his acknowledgement. I had my place in the family not because of a will or papers, but because I had fought for it. And because Dad had chosen to see me for who I truly was. That night, as the guests finally left and the house grew quiet again, Dad hugged me tightly. "You're not going anywhere," he whispered. "Not while I'm alive. Not ever." And for the first time in a long time, I believed him.